Okay, so this was a really, really interesting off season. Maybe the most like eventful off season, or rather silly season in NASCAR history. A lot of teams made a lot of moves and got some new faces in new places now. So today, before the 2023 season started, I just kind of wanted to, refresh my head. And since I never had the chance to talk about this during the off season, because it felt like so many moves were happening, whether big or small they were. So I just decided to compile all of my thoughts into this single video right here, and just want to give my opinion on each move. And doing it by teams. I'm not doing it like by drivers, but I'm gonna sort them by teams just to make this video like slightly shorter. But anyways, it's gonna be a lot of gonna be talking about each team quite a bit. So anyways, we're gonna start with we're gonna go through alphabetical order, teams that are in here. Let's start with 2311 Racing. Kurt Busch retired, and they got Tyler Reddick in his place. Now, this actually was a move that was supposed to happen in 2024, with Reddick, who was supposed to be like in 2023 for RCR, but after he signed the deal in 2024, it was kind of like there was gonna have like this dark cloud, like, and it was gonna be pretty awkward for RCR to work with Reddick, knowing that they weren't gonna be able to re-sign him. And in a way, it kind of feels like Tyler Reddick just burned a bridge there, because RCR, this was the team that actually gave him like his big break, won an Xfinity title with them, and then that Xfinity team, he moved that entire operation to the Cup Series. And he was doing pretty good to that point. He had finally finally won 3 races that season. That was his breakout year, and now it's not really a full reset, but from a driver perspective, this move, it remains to be seen how Tyler Reddick will perform, because 2311, he has more potential than RCR because of its close alliance with JGR, but like from a team perspective, this is actually a really good move, because you get to replace Kurt Busch with a pretty young and promising driver, even though Tyler Reddick is not that young. He's like in his entering his late 20s, but he's still pretty good. So I'm gonna give this move a B. I like the move, not a lot, because of, I don't know, it remains to be seen how Tyler Reddick is going to perform overall with that team. But from a driver perspective, I don't know, that remains to be seen if Reddick made the right choice. But from a team perspective, Kurt Busch was retiring, and his issues with the concussions, it doesn't look like they're gonna be going away anytime soon. So yeah, from a team perspective, this was a really great move. Now this next team, this is Alpha Prime Racing, Xfinity team. I'm also gonna give them a B. They expanded. What this team basically did was they expanded to 3 full-time cars, and they also got Jeffrey Earnhardt as their full-time driver, which, I like the move. Jeffrey Earnhardt, he gets a ride that is adequate to his skill set, or rather his driving skill. A ride where he can compete, like get top 25s, occasional top 20. That's kind of like the goal for Alpha Prime. Hopefully he hopefully he doesn't get sacked mid-season like many other Xfinity drivers are doing right now. I know most of that has to do with sponsorship issues, but I really hope Jeffrey Earnhardt just doesn't get sacked, or any of these guys that are in their new rides in the Xfinity, they just don't get sacked because of sponsorship. Because from for a few of those guys, I'm really excited for. AM Racing. This is a team that actually made a lot of under-radar moves. The first thing they did was they switched to Ford. So now they're going to have a Ford team. And this is a Truck Series team. So, and I'm going to say something. Ford actually made a great move, like expanding into their Xfinity and Truck Series, into Xfinity and Truck Series teams, because it only looked like Ford, they only had a presence in the Cup Series, but then Xfinity and the Truck Series, they just didn't have much to work with. Now they got AM Racing and a few other teams that switched over to Ford too, in both Xfinity and Trucks. And speaking of the Xfinity Series, this team is also going to compete full-time in the Xfinity Series with Brett Moffitt. Now, I'm going to give this a B, but it's more like a B plus in my opinion, simply because they got Brett Moffitt, a guy that, in case you didn't know, because you may have forgotten, still a Truck Series champion. I know 5 years, it felt like a long time ago, but it's only 5 years ago since he lifted that the Truck Series title. And he is still a guy that can elevate a team. You know, a team like AM Racing, and we saw it with our motorsports. Moffitt elevated that team, and that team into a daily, into a weekly, like top 20 contender. He could do the same with AM Racing. Now, will they compete for a playoff spot? That remains to be seen. I'm leaning towards no, but then again, he could pull off a Jeremy Clements and get an upset win. Who knows what's gonna happen there? But at the moment, I like this move quite a bit for them. Big Machine Racing team. This team, in my opinion, is one of the big winners in this silly season. They managed to keep Jake Buford. They're gonna be he's gonna be now in a part-time capacity. They're gonna have a second part-time team for him, I believe. But the big splash that they made was Parker Kligerman. They finally got Parker Kligerman a full-time ride, and is in the Xfinity Series. I am so excited to see what Parker Kligerman is going to do. And he could possibly be one of those guys that could be like on watch for a playoff spot. I don't know if he can take it, if he can lock himself in on points with how top heavy that the Xfinity Series is. But if he gets a win, again, if he pulls like a Jeremy Clements and finesses a win somehow, he could make some noise in the playoffs. And maybe get past a round of 12 simply off of talent alone. But anyways, Big Machine Racing, they finally got a driver to move their program forward. They got Jake Buford to build the groundwork, and now they have Parker Kligerman to just move the program forward. This is what smaller teams need. Even if Parker Kligerman somehow doesn't make the playoffs, they just need him to improve upon the results that Jake Buford was delivering. If he does just that, that is a win for that team. BJ McLeod Motorsports. Now, this is another team that, honestly, I'm gonna give them a B, but it's more like a B plus, honestly. They got 2 full-time drivers, which, again, just like with Alpha Prime, I really hope that these guys, they stay the whole season. They got Anthony Alfredo in the 78, and they also got Garrett Smithley in the 99. So Anthony Alfredo and Garrett Smithley are BJ McLeod's new duo. And now Garrett Smithley again, he is a guy that has he has like kind of like jumped around, a kind of a journeyman driver for some of the smaller or back marker teams. He finally gets a ride that is adequate to his pretty much his driving skill set, or like his skill as a driver, kind of like Jeffrey Earnhardt with Alpha Prime in the 44. Smithley in the 99, BJ McLeod Motorsports. That is pretty much the perfect ride for him. Top 25, maybe could get a top 20 if some if the cards play right for him. Now Anthony Alfredo, well, this is a downgrade for him. You got to think about it from a team perspective. BJ McLeod, they finally got a guy that they can build a program around. This is, in my opinion, one of, if not the most talented driver that BJ McLeod has ever gotten, that team has ever gotten. So, I don't know how much Anthony Alfredo is going to do with them, but I really think that that team is going to get some pretty good results, some better results than what they have gotten. I don't know how much they're gonna Alfredo's gonna elevate the team, but that team is gonna look pretty nice next season. Trust me, they're gonna surprise quite a few people with their results. They're gonna be running like a bit better than expected. See here, Brett Holmes. Oh, should I say Brett Holmes Racing? But I'm just gonna say Brett Holmes here. He is going full time with the Truck Series. You know, he had been running part time the past 2 seasons. He is finally making a jump to full time in the Truck Series, and you know the time is right for him. The guy has shown that he can actually hang on and maybe even get a few top 10s here and there with. With his family, with his family-owned team, or rather his self-owned team. I don't know if it's his family-owned team because the team is called Brett Holmes Racing, but it is his team. And moving his team to the Truck Series full-time when, after in a part-time effort he managed to get results is a great move. And Brett Holmes is an ARCA champion, and he's one of those drivers that if with the proper funding he can get results. So I really hope the best for Brett Holmes, and hopefully he gets some great results. Now, Front Row Motorsports, this is, in my opinion, one of the losers in this off season. And now, this what they did, actually they wouldn't have been here on this. I wouldn't be talking about them if it wasn't for what they did like about a week ago. This news didn't pop up until a week ago. What they basically did was, when their lineup was already set, Michael McDowell, Todd Gilliland, out of the blue, they just said, you know what, Todd Gilliland is not going to be running full time. 6 of those races, we're going to give him to Saint Smith in the 38. Now, the thing is, Saint Smith already had a part-time cup ride lined up in the 36. He's going to be running the Daytona 500 in the 36, plus a few other races. There was literally no need for Front Row Motorsports to give Saint Smith additional races other than maybe sponsorship issues. But even then, that whole deal, it just doesn't make any sense because most of the Front Row Motorsports sponsors that they have, and the ones that they have sponsored the 38 car, they are more loyal to Todd Gilliland than they are with Zane Smith. And not only by doing this, not only are you alienating one of your young drivers and actually like the best driver that the 38 has had since Gilliland's father himself, David Gilliland. Or rather, I wouldn't go that far. Maybe best driver since David Reagan in that 38. I don't know. That whole 38 team is just a carousel. They went from Matt Tifft to John Hunter Nemechek to Anthony Alfredo, now to Todd Gilliland, and it looked like that team had finally gotten some stability with Gilliland entering like the 2nd year of his contract. But now it turns out that he's gonna be splitting the ride with Zane Smith, and the thing is, Zane Smith, he is Ford's best prospect. And while he is running with Front Row Motorsports, there is no guarantee that he will be running full-time in the Cup Series with them. He could be running full-time for all we know. RFK Racing could get enough funding to open up a 3rd team and put Zane Smith there. Or maybe the Wood brothers, they somehow decide that the Harrison Burton plan isn't working out for them. They might decide to go a different direction and they go with Zane Smith. Who knows? The thing is, The Gilliland family, both David Gilliland and Todd Gilliland, they have been very loyal to the Front Row Motorsports brand. And that 38 number, that number 38 that Todd Gilliland is driving, is as synonymous to Front Row Motorsports as it is with the Gilliland family, especially with David and now Todd. So I really don't understand the move, what the move is here. Again, if Front Row Motorsports wanted to give Saint Smith more races, they could have just done it in the 36. There was literally no need to cut Todd Gilliland. Now the guy is just left scrambling to get to just put together those six, to find a way to put together those 6 races for to complete the full season. Even if it's with Rickward Racing, I would just take it, because Todd Gilliland, he was promised a full-time season, and the fact that he's just getting screwed over just weeks before the season begins, that's just bullshit in my opinion. And again, I'm happy for Saint Smith, and if I had to choose between him and Todd, I would 100% choose Saint Smith, because the guy, he's a defending Truck Series champion. But the thing is, does it really matter, or is it really worth it, like rushing Saint Smith to the Cup Series at the expense of your already established Cup Series driver, even though Saint Smith has more potential than Todd Gilliland? It's not worth it. Saint Smith, he deserves to be, he deserves this opportunity, but not at the expense of Todd Gilliland losing his full-time seat in the 38, having to share it with him for like 6 races. That just doesn't make sense. That's why, Front Row Motorsports, and I'm putting it here in moves that I do not like, because this just doesn't make sense. And it's just, I wouldn't say it's wrong in so many levels, but I just cannot find the logic behind it. I'm sorry. Anyways, moving on. JD Motorsports, they replaced Ryan Vargas with Brennan Poole, and they retained Bailey Curry. So basically, they continue with their two full-time teams that they downsized from last year. But instead of Ryan Vargas, they replaced him with Brennan Poole, and I'm really upset because I felt like Ryan Vargas was like I felt like you could have given him just one more year, because how many seasons does he have? Just 2 seasons with them. In the 3rd season, if he hasn't shown any signs of improvement, then yeah, that's fair game. We can let the guy go. But I feel like maybe it was like too soon for him to let him go. Although I feel like maybe they were going a bit desperate, and Brennan Poole was right there too with sponsorship. And Brennan Poole, ever since he got screwed over by that DC Solar scandal, he has been scrambling to get a quality ride. I know he spent that like the 2020 season with Premium Motorsports. That team got bought out by Rickward Racing, so he was basically running a back marker team there. But outside of that, he hasn't really had and that wasn't even a quality ride. Ever since the DC Solar scandal like screwed him out of Chip Ganassi, of the Chip Ganassi development pipeline, he hasn't had like a decent ride, and he finally got it. Even if it's at the expense of Ryan Vargas, the guy is an upgrade in funding wise and experience wise, and I wouldn't say skill wise, because I feel like Vargas still has some potential, but again, it sucks to see Vargas go. And I believe Vargas, he dropped down to the Truck Series, and he's also going to be running like a few races with in Xfinity with Mike Harmon. So he's going to be racing part-time in both Trucks and Xfinity. So it's not all that bad for him. He's still got his ride, even if it's in a reduced capacity. But yeah, overall, I don't have much to say about this. I like it, even if I feel a little bit bad for Ryan Vargas, but I understand it from JD Motorsports side. Even if I feel it was a little bit premature. Now, another team that really that really had a big loss in this offseason was Joe Gibbs Racing. Speaking of losers, if it wasn't for Front Row Motorsports, Joe Gibbs Racing would have been the biggest loser in this silly season, because not only did they just give up on finding a sponsor for Kyle Busch and they let him go, they also lost, with Kyle Busch gone, they also lost Kyle Busch Motorsports, which was like their premier driver pipeline in the truck series, and also ARCA. They were dipping their toes in ARCA that season with I believe Sammy Smith, and they also lost Brandon Jones, who was like a big part of their funding. Not only for their Xfinity, a large part of their funding for their Xfinity program, but also they were also funding like the Ream sponsorship that Brandon Jones brought into their Cup program. They were sponsoring Christopher Bell as well. So not only did you lose Kyle Busch, you also lose financial support and the entire Toyota pipeline, or like a big Toyota driver development pipeline team from which to develop drivers through. I know they got like this team, Tricon Garage. Basically, I know they got David Gilliland Racing. They're now called Tricon Garage, I believe. They got them to switch to Toyota. So, the whole pipeline thing is kind of fixed, but they still managed to retain a few of their drivers, but they still lost Chandler Smith. They still lost Brandon Jones. Kyle Busch was a big guy that lost that they lost over there, but just Joe Gibbs Racing, they just mishandled that really badly. And to think that they sacrificed all of this just to give Ty Gibbs a full-time seat in the Cup Series. And don't get me wrong, Ty Gibbs has shown great strides as a driver. He has talent, and he's had several chances, with Kurt Busch sideline for the second half of the season. He got several chances to get experience in that Gen 7 car. But his maturity still remains a question. But was it really worth it, letting like your best driver and basically Toyota's best driver in NASCAR's history up until this point, of course, and the guy that has done the most for Toyota in NASCAR, both as a driver and as an owner, you just let him go just to put the grandson of the team's owner in a full-time Cup ride? As talented as that grandson is, I don't think Ty Gibbs is gonna be a two-time champion that's gonna get you like 60+ career wins. And even if he was, it's still not worth it letting Kyle Busch go. Letting a guy like Kyle Busch go is just not worth it. And again, I know it's not really, I can't blame it all on Joe Gibbs' part, because they offered Kyle Busch like a contract, and Kyle Busch said no because they were like lowballing him. And it was tough for them to find a sponsor, but it kind of felt like they gave up at some point. I know they had a deal in place like back in the summer of last season with Oracle that I believe fell off. I don't know, for some reason it fell off, but after that it seems like they just kind of gave up, and they've shifted their focus more towards Ty Gibbs, and it was pretty. And that second half for Kyle Busch was just atrocious. That was like the worst stretch of his career. It was just so sad to see. And in case you didn't know, I still hold some hard feelings towards that team, and I just cannot look at Joe Gibbs and Toyota the same way after what they did to Kyle Busch. I'm sorry. Anyways, speaking of teams that actually won at the expense of Joe Gibbs Racing, JR Motorsports, they managed to replace Noah Gragson with Brandon Jones. Now, why am I giving this an A? It's more of an A-, honestly, because Brandon Jones is, as a driver, he's a downgrade over Gragson. But you gotta remember, now he's driving the 9. The 9 is a better ride than the 19 that he was over at JGR. And also, he has actually improved. I'm gonna say kind of. He has improved, and he has become a pretty serviceable, above average driver. Before Ty Gibbs wrecked him at Martinsville last year, he was on the cusp of making the championship four. So, he could have like a 2020 season where he wins multiple races, except that he is more consistent. In my opinion, Brandon Jones is a dark horse threat to make it to the championship four. Winning a title, not really, but at least making it a championship four, he could be a dark horse threat. Just watch out for that. And also, in a sport that just prides itself on like sponsorship and just thrives on sponsorship, I know JR Motorsports, they were pretty good on sponsorship dollars, but you know the financial support that Brandon Jones that they get from Brandon Jones with Menards and Ream. Also, the fact that Brandon Jones is not that bad of a driver that he was. He's not the wrecking ball that he was during his earlier seasons at RCR and Gibbs. I'm gonna say this is a pretty. I'm confident in putting this move as an A, even if it's like an A minus. JR Motorsports, they still won. I like this move a lot. Let's see here now. Next, we got Jordan Anderson Racing, another team that made some moves that I actually quite liked a lot. They expanded to 2 full-time teams, and they had Jeff Burton in the 27 that they got from our Motorsports, basically downsizing. They managed to pick him up, but the big splash that they made, and the main reason why I have them in the A tier, is Parker Retzlaff, a guy that has actually shown a lot of potential. And I really do not know why Ford, because he was driving for like Ryan Sieg Racing earlier in the season before he started driving Chevrolet. I don't know why Ford didn't sign this guy to a development deal sooner, because now they just let Chevrolet snag him just like that, and they put him in a Jordan Anderson Racing car. This guy has a ton of potential. He is definitely, even if he's inexperienced still, he has more potential already than Myatt Snyder, his predecessor in that ride. So that alone makes it a win for me. Colleague Racing. Speaking of teams that, another team that won at the expense of JGR, Colleague Racing, they got Chandler Smith, another guy from the Toyota pipeline. They managed to sign him to replace Allmendinger, as Allmendinger also moved up to the Cup Series. Also, Landon Castle, he's not going to be running full-time with the team. He's still going to remain with the team in some capacity, but, after his sponsor Voyager, they filed for bankruptcy, we all knew that wasn't going to... we all knew that his future as a full-time Colleague racing driver was kind of up in the air, and now it's pretty much being confirmed that he's going to be running part-time, and the tank car is basically going to be like a driver rotation now. Justin Haley, Allmendinger, they're going to be there. I've even seen Austin Dillon will be there. And who knows who else is going to be there. But yeah. So they got Daniel Hemrick is returning. Let's see if he can, return to form after that disastrous title defense season he had. But yeah, they got Daniel Hemrick, Chandler Smith, who I believe is gonna be like their anchor driver, simply because he's running the 16, which is like quote unquote their flagship car, at least as far as the Xfinity goes. But yeah, and then on the Cup side, they got Haley and Allmendinger, who is returning to the Cup Series. I feel like Allmendinger found his home in Colleague Racing. That team has given him life, has really revived his career, and no other team has. If you told me 5 years ago, after he left JGT Doherty Racing, that AJ Allmendinger will be competing for an Xfinity title and then returning to the Cup Series with basically with a revived, basically rejuvenated, I would be calling you crazy, but that's where we are right now. So I gotta say, Colleague Racing, I just like them. I just always liked them ever since they They started out with their single car operation with Blake Koch. They have always done things right. They are a team that they have always done things right, and I really hope to see them succeed. I really hope to see Justin Haley continue to develop, and now I'm excited to see what they do with their new prospect in Chandler Smith. Okay, so Kyle Busch Motorsports. Now, you would expect that this team won, or at the very least they stayed afloat now that they are out of the Joe Gibbs Racing shadow. Well, you would think otherwise, because as it turns out, not being with Toyota means that you lose access to that pipeline of young drivers that really carried you. I mean, for God's sakes, they couldn't even retain John Hunter Nemechek. Speaking of John Hunter, they got him to the Xfinity Series. Joe Gibbs Racing managed to retain him like they should. Again, Xfinity Series. They couldn't get Sammy Smith. He's also going to Xfinity with Joe Gibbs. So they basically, what this team had to work with was with basically the scraps of GMS Racing, basically. This team, if you look at the driver lineup that this team has, they look like the GMS Racing rejects. They got Chase Purdy running the 4, and then in the 51, like for part-time, they got Jack Wood. They are former GMS Racing drivers that just didn't pan out, and I just don't see how Kyle Busch Motorsports can compete with this lineup. I think this will be the first time in team history that they will go winless. Like, their entire operation will go winless. I think this is going to be the first time in team history, and it's all because they no longer have the support from Toyota. They no longer have the sponsors from Toyota. They couldn't keep Mobil 1 or Safe Light Autoglass. Those sponsors, they're Toyota sponsors. They're not Kyle Busch Motorsports sponsors. So overall, Kyle Busch, he may have won by going to RCR, but his Truck Series operation suffered a big loss by separating himself from Toyota. And speaking of RCR, since we're talking about Kyle Busch, they're just big winners. The fact about them signing Kyle Busch is that they not only signed Kyle Busch, they also signed his entire family for basically the rest of Kyle Busch's career. Because I don't know if you guys noticed this, but when Richard Childress, in the press conference when announcing the RCR Kyle Busch announcement, I don't know if you guys saw this. Of course you guys remember this, but half jokingly, Childress actually offered Braxton Busch, like Kyle's son, a contract. That was like maybe it was half joking, but every joke has some truth to it. And maybe like 10 years down the line, maybe Braxton, if Kyle is still in RCR, or Kyle retires with RCR and he still keeps that relationship there, and it looks like it's going strong already, as Childress actually, they redesigned that number 8 font. Kyle had a lot of input there, and it looks like RCR, they're going all in with Kyle Busch, and I really like it because Richard Childress, he is a family man, and RCR is a family team. I mean, Austin Dillon, the grandson, Childress' grandson, he is on the team as Kyle Busch's teammate. So of course it will make sense for Childress to not only sign Kyle Busch but also sign his entire family for the future. So Braxton already following his father's footsteps. If Kyle Busch retires, and I believe he's gonna part ways with, I believe he's gonna retire with RCR, because what this team did, and I really like it a lot as a Kyle Busch fan, is that it gave Kyle Busch the chance to retire on his own terms after, which is more than what guys like Matt Kenseth or Carl Edwards had. I know Carl Edwards, he wants to say he retired. If you ask Carl Edwards, he's going to say that he retired on his own terms. Some of that also had to do with I think some of that had to do with Joe Gibbs, um, pressuring him to retire to make room for Suarez. At first, I didn't want to believe it, but now after what they did to Kenseth and Kyle Busch, and now Kyle Busch, I'm starting to believe that maybe there's something shady going on with some shady business going on with JDR. But overall, I'm gonna say what I really liked about this move with RCR is that they gave Kyle Busch the chance to retire on his own terms. After Joe Gibbs basically took that chance away from him. So they just breathed new life into the man. I know, from a Kyle Busch perspective, this is a downgrade. That 8 car won't run as good as the 18. But from a team perspective, Tyler Reddick from Kyle Busch, going from Tyler Reddick to Kyle Busch is a massive upgrade. Even if Kyle Busch, this is not the Kyle Busch that was from 2015 to 2019, the Kyle Busch that was winning races with Adam Stevens as his crew chief. Again, Randall Burnett is not Adam Stevens, but he's still a damn good crew chief. I do think Kyle can still win a race this season. Just one race. Winning one race this season is all he needs to break the tie with Richard Petty for most consecutive seasons with a win. That's all he needs, and I believe he can do that with RCR. That 8 car, it's outside of Tyler Reddick leaving. That 8 car is untouched. They still got the same crew chief, the same pit crew, and they won 3 races last year with Tyler Reddick. So who's to say they cannot win a race or 2 with Kyle? So, anyways, next team we're gonna talk about is Petty GMS. Legacy Motor Club. I am tempted to put this team in the D rank, in the D tier, simply because of the name change. Because Legacy Motor Club, it just sounds like an old retirement home, or like an old retirement home for guys that like to talk about the good old days of NASCAR, damn boomers, damn Chaden Yoders, or whatever. But yeah, I'm still gonna try and call them Petty GMS, because the Legacy Motor Club is just doesn't sit right with me. Anyways, Petty GMS. They got Noah Gragson to replace Ty Dillon, who I don't know if you got. I know I've been saying this like a couple of times, but I actually forgot Ty Dillon was in the Cup Series last year. That's just how irrelevant he was. I forgot he was in the 42 car was a thing last season, and I forgot Ty Dillon was in it. It wasn't until when I look back when making this video, I was like, oh, Ty Dillon was in the 42. Well, it doesn't matter now because Noah Gragson is replacing him, and Gragson is a big upgrade over Ty Dillon, obviously. And they also got Jimmy Johnson, which is why they changed the name to Legacy Motor Club, because Jimmy Johnson is now a business partner with Richard Petty, 2 7-time champions joining together. Also in the Truck Series side, because I'm going to talk about I know GMS Racing is technically like a separate entity, because Richard Petty has no influence on the Truck Series team. That is all like Maurice Gallagher and his guys over there controlling the entire team. But I'm still gonna put GMS Racing together with Legacy Motor Club, because it's basically the same operation. It's basically Petty GMS. So yeah, in the GMS side, Graham Finger returns. It's a multi-year deal that he signed. So his role as a veteran driver on the Truck Series operation is fine. But then Jack Wood, they finally released him because he just wasn't working out for them, and they replaced him with Daniel Dye and Raja Caruth, the 2 runners-up to Nick Sanchez in the ARCA series. So 2 quality young drivers that they can rebuild like their young team around, with Graham Finger as the anchor, and then Daniel Dye and Raja Caruth as the two young guys. There's just nothing else to say. Petty GMS, or should I say Legacy Motor Club, or whatever that thing is, or whatever that name is. They did good. They on the Cup side they replaced Ty Dillon with Noah Gragson, and on the Truck Series side they replaced Jack Wood with Daniel Dye and Raja Caruth. They did great on both ends. Solid A. Next team. Well, now that we're talking about on the topic of Ty Dillon, let's go to Spire Motorsports because they finally go. The 77 team finally has a full-time driver, and it's none other than Ty Dillon. So now, Spire Motorsports are gonna roll into 2023 with two full-time drivers in Ty Dillon and Corey LaJoie. That's it. I just don't care much about it. It's good that drivers, that teams. It's always good when a team gets a full-time driver to run for the entire season, because that shows a sign of stability, and especially for the smaller or borderline back marker teams, teams that usually don't run top 20. Having a full-time driver to build a program build a program is fine. Spire Motorsports has done that with Corey LaJoie, and now they're doing that with their second team with Ty Dillon. Now, I know Ty Dillon is almost scraping the bottom of the barrel as far as Cup Series drivers go, but he is not the worst choice to have, to start building around full-time drivers. Again, this is the first time the 77 team has a full-time driver in their team history. So starting out with Ty Dillon, not a bad thing. I believe this is going to be a short-term deal, though, and I hope it is, because you could do so many better than Ty Dillon. That's why I'm giving this team a C. I just don't care about this move, honestly. Another team that, I don't really care much about is Young's Motorsports. Chris Wright and Spencer Boyd, they return. They also got Derek Krause for a one-race deal at Daytona. A part of me kind of wishes that they got Derek Krause too for a full-time, for the third full-time truck, the number 20, because I still am holding out for some hope that Derek Krause succeeds, but at this point I'm just starting to give up. Krause had 3 seasons with Bill McAnally, and he just didn't pan out. His first season, he fell. His first season was solid, but then his second and third season, he just kind of stagnated, and it was time for a change. Speaking of Bill McAnally, they replaced Derek Krause with Christian Eckes, and they also expand to a second full-time team with Jake Garcia. So overall, I like this move. It remains to be seen. I'm not giving it an A because, it remains to be seen if this team can finally make the playoffs. I don't know if Eckes can put them over the hump because even in ThorSport, he didn't win a race last season despite running in ThorSport. And McAnally is a pretty clear downgrade from ThorSport. So I don't know if Eckes is going to be able to win a race. I know he's a better driver than Krause, but even then, I don't know if he's gonna be able to win a race in an inferior truck when he didn't win with ThorSport. But overall, from a team perspective, they did pretty well because Eckes, he's an upgrade over Derek Krause. Even if I don't think Eckes is gonna win a race with that team, he is an upgrade over Derek Krause, and they're gonna get better results. And they also got Jake Garcia, another development driver to build around. So I'm gonna give them a B+. Yeah, overall. So again, back on the topic of Derek Krause, A part of me kind of wishes that he got a full time right there, but also a part of me is like, it's Young's Motorsports, it's nothing special, so, it's whatever. Anyways, Tricon Garage. I know I've been mentioning them quite a few times. On the topic of those guys, I'm gonna give them a B, because they made the switch from Ford to Toyota, which means that they are now Toyota's team. Toyota's driver development team. They are basically the new Cowboys Motorsports, even though they don't have the quality drivers that Cowboys Motorsports had. They got pretty much the rotation, the driver roster for this season is pretty much all of them young drivers. They got 4 full-time teams and 1 part-time car for even more young drivers. So their 5th truck is a rotation of young drivers, and their 4 full-time guys are also all young drivers. Now, compared to last season when they were David Gilliland Racing, they had Tanner Gray, Taylor Gray, so the Gray brothers, and Hailie Deegan. Now Hailie Deegan is gone because she is a Ford driver, and that team is switching to Toyota, so that's not gonna slide. They managed to keep the Gray brothers because they are not signed with Ford. They are signed with David Gilliland's team. So whatever David Gilliland does, the Gray brothers are gonna follow suit. So anyways, they keep Tanner Gray, they keep Taylor Gray, and they replace Hailie Deegan with Corey Heim, and they also add Dean Thompson on top of that. Okay, so now, some pretty interesting things to say. Dean Thompson, he showed flashes at Nice Motorsports, but he just didn't pan out. The guy just didn't pan out. Kind of like Chris Wright, but a bit better, in my opinion, if you ask me. Do I think it's gonna do better at Tricon Garage? Yes, but it's not gonna be noticeable, or rather, it's not gonna be worth talking about. It's gonna improve, sure, but how much he improves is honestly irrelevant because I don't think he's gonna make the playoffs. Now Corey Heim, I believe he's gonna be the best driver of this bunch. I believe he has the best chance of taking this ragtag bunch to the playoffs. And then the Gray brothers, Tanner and Taylor. I think Tanner is gonna be like the 2nd best driver on that team. I only say that because Taylor is not gonna be running the full season. Once he turns 18 and declares for Rookie of the Year, he's gonna become like their full-time driver. And when that happens, I believe there's gonna be a competition between, some sibling rivalry between who's gonna be the second guy, the 2nd best guy on the team, because Tanner Gray has more experience, but Taylor Gray has more potential. So it's gonna be interesting to see. But overall, I feel Corey Heim is the best guy on that team, and they're the best chance they gotta make in the playoffs. So anyways, Rev Racing, might as well just, get all of the Truck Series teams out of the way. Rev Racing, instead of, keeping themselves in the ARCA Series, they finally make the jump to the Truck Series, which was honestly surprising to me because they had always been like a development team for the ARCA Series. And they have always been like closely linked to the Drive for Diversity program. They finally decide, they're gonna make the jump to the Truck Series and see what happens, and they're gonna do it with their ARCA champion Nick Sanchez. Now, I actually like this move, Nick Sanchez to the Truck Series with, Rev Racing, a team that he has already worked with. It is unexpected, but I kind of like it, so I'm giving it an A. Although, a part of me wishes that Nick Sanchez signed with Cowboys Motorsports. That way you can, even if you can keep Chase Purdy and Jack Wood, but just add Nick Sanchez to that team. Because having Nick Sanchez driving one of the KBM trucks, that would give that team like some staying power or some relevance in the truck series. But instead of that, they're just stuck with what, Chase Purdy and Jack Wood. Why couldn't Rev Racing just let Cowboys Motorsports have Nick Sanchez? Why did they have just to start their own truck series team instead? Again, again, in case you haven't noticed, I'm just kidding. So yeah, while I consider this move unexpected, I'm still happy for that. I'm still happy for them, that a team, they're expanding, and this opens up like future possibilities for, the Drive for Diversity program to be expanded into the truck series through Rev Racing. Who knows? Raja Karuth is also part of the Drive for Diversity program, so maybe somewhere down the line, if he gets released from GMS Racing, maybe he can go back to Rev Racing and continue racing in the truck series there. Who knows? And okay, so Nice Motorsports, moving on with the truck series teams. They honestly made a downgrade. They got rid of Chris Wright and Dean Thompson, and they keep Lawless Allen. Now, in my opinion, between the three of Lawless Allen, Chris Wright, and Dean Thompson, I feel like they kept the right guy. If you made me like a ladder, if you ask me which of the, between Dean Thompson, Lawless Allen, and Chris Wright, which of the three of them was the better guy, I would tell you Lawless Allen showed the most potential last season, followed by Dean Thompson, and then Chris Wright. So, logically, Nice Motorsports decided we're gonna downsize to 2 trucks and have Dean or rather not Dean Thompson, Lawless Allen stay in the 45 along with Carson Hocevar, and then the third truck, because they're having like, they ran like 4 full-time trucks. They're now downsizing to 3 now. The third full-time truck is gonna be like a rotation, but they got 2 full-time drivers still, Carson Hocevar and Dean Thompson. Now, why am I giving this move a C? It's because it was the logical choice. I'm not gonna tell them, I'm not gonna give them like brownie points simply because for making the logical choice, because downsizing, it was meant to happen. Like Nice Motorsports, you pretty much knew a downsize was necessary in order for that team to progress. Sometimes it's just a concept of addition by subtraction. Too many mouths to feed. Now that they finally got their efforts concentrated on just 2 full-time drivers, maybe finally Carson Hocevar can win his first race. Just maybe this season, unless Lady Luck deals him a bad hand again. But, still holding out on hope. That guy is just way too talented to stay winless anytime soon. So anyways, Rion Brothers Racing, they switched to Ford. This is another one of those truck series teams that switched to Ford. They actually got a full-time driver too, Mason Massey. Good for them. Again, that's pretty much it. I just don't really care much about them, because the thing is, that team is a borderline backmarker team. So that's why, a driver like Mason Massey, a full-time ride with Room Brothers Racing is like just adequate for him. And actually that's gonna start, building their, they're gonna start like building their program with a full-time driver again. Smaller teams getting a full-time driver is always good. I'm giving them a C though, because again, this team, for this team I have much lower expectations than AM Racing or Alpha Prime. I just don't have much expectations for this team, honestly. Okay. Sam Hunt Racing, also known as SHR. Speaking of full-time drivers, Sam Hunt Racing also got a full-time driver of their own. Kaz Gralla, again, another guy that finally got a full-time ride, another, driver with potential that finally got a full-time ride. I'm so happy that Kaz Grala got a full-time ride, and it's with Sam Hunt Racing. And again, this is the first full-time driver that they have in team history, so pretty big deal. They finally got a guy that they can continue building their program. They finally got like their anchor driver to refer to throughout the season. Do I think he's gonna make the playoffs? Again, Xfinity is top heavy, but for a team like Sam Hunt Racing, that is usually a mid-pack team, it doesn't really matter. All they need is for Kaz Grala to run a few full-time seasons for them and start, continue moving their program forward. That's all they need at the moment. Okay, another team that actually picked up a nice little crop of young drivers too. SS Greenlight Racing, another A-tier team. They got Blaine Perkins, and they brought back Gray Golding as well. The best driver in their recent history, as far as the Xfinity Series goes. But yeah, Blaine Perkins, he's shown a lot of potential in both the Xfinity and the Truck Series. And Gray Golding, he has delivered some pretty good results for them in the past. So those guys, Hover Joe Graf Jr. is an upgrade. Where is Joe Graf Jr. going? He's going to Joe Gibbs Racing. Well, he's actually going to RSS Racing with the Ryan Sieg and Kyle Sieg teams. And that's actually a team that I actually forgot to put here. But yeah, RSS Racing, I'm giving them a B minus. If I put RSS Racing here, they would be a B minus. Kyle Sieg is going full time. That's pretty Okay, now that I think about it, I'm gonna put them in a C tier. RSS Racing, they put Kyle Sieg over a full time ride, which is honestly, no, I don't really care much for. Joe Graf Jr. is gonna be racing full time for them, or rather, like, he's gonna be running most of the races for them in one of the RSS Racing cars. I believe it's gonna be the 38, but then he's gonna be running 5 races with JGR, which I don't know. That just came out of nowhere there. I do believe Myatt Snyder is also running full time for them. I just want to check because Joe Gibbs Racing has a pretty whack driver rotation, like for that 19 car in Xfinity. I just want to check for a moment. Let me see here. Xfinity 2023 Joe Gibbs Racing. See here. Oh wow. Oh my god. Yeah, oh my gosh, yeah. Joe Gibbs Racing is a big loser in this. Was a big loser in all of this. Okay, so they got Myatt Snyder. So he's no longer a Chevrolet driver. They got Joe Graf Jr., Ryan Truex, and Connor Mosack, who's actually gonna be running most of the races for Sam Hunt Racing. He's gonna be running 20 races for the second Sam Hunt Racing car. So again, he shouldn't even be considered a GGR driver. He's only running like three races for that team. But yeah, that's the driver rotation that they have so far for that 19 car. That's awful. Man, that's freaking awful. Why couldn't they just give Trevor Bayne the full-time ride? Or hell, even Ryan Truex. Ryan Truex doesn't even have a full-time. Ryan Truex hasn't even had a full-time Xfinity ride since 2018 when he was with Colleague. That was like a perfect chance for them. Or even Trevor Bayne, man. Just give Trevor Bayne a full-time ride. He did very well for them last year in the 18. I don't really. Yeah, the situation over at JGR is just so whack, especially with the Xfinity program. I'm so glad Cowboys is gone from them. Okay. Anyways, Thor Sport Racing. They switched back to Ford because of the arrival of Haley Deegan. Again, it's not their fault. But I just find it funny how ThorSport, they originally made the switch to Ford in 2018, but then in 2021 they switched back to Toyota because of Christian Eckes, who was a Toyota driver at the time, and Toyota was still high on Christian Eckes at the time. And then after Christian Eckes leaves, they replace him with Hailie Deegan, and they switch to Ford because Hailie Deegan is a Ford driver. Now, whether ThorSport switched back to Ford was going to switch back to Ford anyways, even without Hailie Deegan, because, Christian Eckes was off the team. And the main reason they switched to Toyota back in 2021 was because of Christian Eckes. Now, Eckes is no longer on the team, and he is no longer on Toyota, as a matter of fact, because McAnally Bill McAnally is a Chevrolet team. So the question, it's pretty interesting to see, because even if Hailie Deegan didn't join the team, will they still switch back to Ford, or would they remain with Toyota because of continuity? I don't know. A part of me feels like they would have stayed with Toyota for continuity, but because they got Hailie Deegan, that's totally irrelevant now. They're just back and forth. But yeah, anyways, that is the only major move they made. Because Matt Crafton's coming back, Ben Rhodes is coming back, Ty Majeski is coming back, even though they're putting him in the 98 now instead of the 66. Because the 66 is gonna be now like the 5th truck for development drivers. I believe his name is Connor Jones. I believe they signed him. I believe he's like a Ford prospect. That he's gonna be running a few races with ThorSport. So Hailie Deegan is gonna be driving the 13. So yeah, it's just a pretty crazy situation at ThorSport. They always like to shuffle numbers. I remember Ben Rhodes, he ran like the 41, then the 27, then back to the 41, and then, well, the 99, which, that has been his number ever since. But outside of that, it's just a crazy carousel over there at ThorSport. I don't know how they can still remain in contention despite all of this. Like, the only consistent thing in ThorSport is that Matt Crafton Neon Yellow Menards 88. Other than that, it's all a freaking mess. But they're somehow making it work, and I gotta give them props. But Christian Eckes for Hailie Deegan and Connor Jones, like development drivers, that's gonna be a B- from me. Hailie Deegan, she's gonna bring them, more sponsorship. She's more marketable than Christian Eckes. But outside of that, I don't think she's gonna perform as good as Eckes. Even if Eckes didn't win a race, Deegan didn't win a race either, and she had struggled to finish in the top 10. Now, some of that had to do because maybe David Gilliland Racing, they weren't giving her the best cars. Like they were focusing all their efforts on the 17. Maybe that's why Tyler Gray looked so good. Maybe that's why Ryan Preece looked so good. Some stuff happened there. I don't know. That's all up to speculation, honestly. But it looks like Hailie Deegan has found her home, and she is finally on a competitive team. So, and this is her 3rd season in the Truck Series now. So she's finally gonna start to prove something. Otherwise, she's gonna be seen as a disappointment, and all that hype that she generated will have been all for nothing. And finally, Stewart-Haas Racing. This is another team that actually did things right. I'm gonna give them an A because, again, they made the logical move, the move that everyone was telling them to do. But the thing is, unlike a team like Nice Motorsports, I'm giving Stewart-Haas Racing an A because those moves not only were the logical moves to make, but they just fit in beautiful. They were just fitting beautiful, and look just how beautiful it all worked out. Cole Custer is back in Xfinity, ever since his rookie season where he won a race and made the playoffs, he stagnated, he regressed, something went wrong, so back to Xfinity he goes. along with Riley Herbst. So now Herbst actually now has an anchor driver that he can look, that he can refer to, and hopefully both SHR cars, the 00 and the 98, will both be winning races this season. And now on the Cup Series side, you replace Cole Custer with Ryan Preece, who had been like a Ford driver. He had been in the Ford pipeline. That they didn't know what to do with him. Kevin Harvick had Simon to his agency, and then eventually Tony Stewart said, he. And I believe Tony Stewart had a lot of input there because the 41 is Gene Haas's car, and I do believe that Cole Custer's father is an executive within the team, so they wanted to keep Cole Custer in the 41, but then Stewart, he kind of wanted Preece in the 41. Gene Haas eventually gave in, and they finally made the decision to put Ryan Preece in the 41, which is actually a great move. It was a logical move, but still a great move nonetheless. And Cole Custer goes back down to Xfinity. Stewart-Haas Racing is looking good. Even with the announcement that Kevin Harvick is going to retire, they're still looking good. And so finally with that, it's over. Little recap here of how the 2023 silly season went. Still pretty crazy. Still pretty crazy how how a lot of teams were involved, and I try to make it as brief as possible. This still ended up in a 1-hour video, but that's what you get when you watch my videos, I guess. Just get to listen to me ramble. Anyways, I'm done.